days gone past, anticipating the future for which
we are waiting,
waiting for a world which can know justice,
waiting for a lasting peace,
waiting for the bridge to span the divides which separate us, waiting for a promise or a hope.
For all of this, we are waiting. Good morning. Unitarian Universalism is indeed a unique style of religion. From our 7 principles, to our non-adherence to any specific deity, to our emphasis on the social issues of today, there is definitely a different feel to being a UU than in most of the other established practices. This is a positive, if for nothing else, than for knowing that the theme of each service does not necessarily mean a tie-in to a specific scripture reading or even a specific church event. In fact, my wife and I in the past year have either witnessed or participated in some very diverse topics from several pulpits. This week is no different. Before I continue, I must thank my wife for helping me craft this sermon and this service, for it would be a truly difficult solo effort for me. The title of this reflection is Everything I Know About Unitarian Universalism I Learned from Star Wars. This was written to be a tie-in to the debut of Episode 9 of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, where all the loose ends in all of the trilogies in the story were supposed to come full circle. But first of all, before I begin, how many people out there have actually seen one of the installments in the Star Wars saga? More than one? All right, I'm not going to push my luck. For all those of you truly not in the know, Star Wars is more than just a cinematic franchise. It has woven itself into the fabric of American culture, and its themes and contexts have been analyzed, dissected, and researched by theologians and social scientists galore. It began as the brainchild of its creator, George Lucas, who envisioned a titanic fight between good and evil that took place, as most of the movies began, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It had diverse creatures, homeworlds of varying character, differing technologies. It had epic space battles. It possessed the coolest weapon in all of cinematic history. But it carried messages, and the jury is still out whether or not this was intentional. Messages that resound with fans outside the theater, in their own part of the galaxy. And what I have done was to list 8 quotes from these movies that best reflect what I feel Unitarian Universalism is. Now, some of these quotes seem almost self-explanatory. Others, well, I may have to explain the context of when it was said. Now, all of these quotes resonate with me on what I believe Unitarian Universalism is and should be. And my wife is a bit nervous, as she knows that I like to ramble when telling these stories, but I assure you, I will do my best to stay on target. My first quote is this: many of the truths that we cling to depend on our point of view. Now, this quote was spoken by Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker, who wished to know why the former chose to hide Luke Skywalker's relationship to the evil Darth Vader. Spoiler alert, Vader is Luke's dad. Sorry. Obi-Wan did this to shield Luke from the knowledge that his father was lost to the dark side. Now, this quote ties into the 4th principle of Unitarian Universalism, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. As we journey on our quest to find truth, we take in information from many different sources. Now, to make this a truly responsible search, however, we must not only possess the information we take in, but we must also take into account the source of the info. What are the motivations for putting this information out? Or excluding info that might have us draw a different conclusion? Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we need to investigate all points of view to make an informed decision on what is the truth. The next quote is, "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent." And in the first installment of this series, The Phantom Menace, which was actually the fourth movie to come out, if you could follow that logic, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn uses this line to upgrade a character known as Jar Jar Binks. Now, Jar Jar was a member of the Gungan race who lived in the ocean on the planet of Naboo. Okay, I see some of you have stares like, what the heck is this man talking about? Explanation. The sea-dwelling Gungans and the land-living people of Naboo kept apart from each other. Jar Jar was a Gungan exiled by his people for his clumsiness and ineptitude. Now, upon meeting up with Qui-Gon, he proved just as annoying. But dislike for Jar Jar didn't just stop inside the screen. You see, Star Wars fans of every caliber hated Jar Jar. He became the most despised character of the franchise. Some wrote to Lucas asking why he would defame such an extraordinary cinematic endeavor by putting a CGI crafted comic relief alien. Well, it turns out that Jar Jar was instrumental in leading the Gungan forces in the Battle of Naboo, and he was also chosen by Naboo's queen to represent the planet in the galactic setting. Jar Jar, for all his faults, had some worth to him, and people saw this. My third quote, "You can't stop change any more than you could stop the suns from setting." This one is also from The Phantom Menace. Anakin Skywalker lives on Tatooine with his mother Shmi. Qui-Gon, the Jedi Master, discovers that Anakin possesses traits that, if harnessed, could make him the strongest Jedi ever. Qui-Gon then devises a plan to take Anakin away to train him and secures the boy's freedom from slavery. However, the boy's mother, Shmi, is not part of the deal. Now, as Anakin says goodbye to his mother, he expresses his reluctance to leaving her. He is afraid of the change that's coming. And Shmi speaks this line of reassurance: "You can't stop change any more than you could stop the suns from setting." Change needed to be faced to realize the goal of making Anakin a Jedi. Now, one of the goals of Unitarian Universalism is a world community with peace, liberty, and the justice for all. There are many in this world today who fear this change and fight every day to prevent it. They fear that to build a community means losing their hold on whatever power they may have. Now, it is our goal as Unitarian Universalists to be the agents of that change and to be the light of reassurance to all who fear in embracing it. My fourth quote comes from episode 4, A New Hope. "Who's more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him?" These words were spoken by Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi to Han Solo, who voiced his displeasure on being a guest aboard the evil Death Star. Simply put, who is the lesser to blame, the one with the bad ideas or the one who backs the one with the bad ideas? To follow someone without first doing their due diligence is foolish indeed. Our current political climate could serve as an example. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, it is inherent upon us to believe and trust in the democratic process in all our endeavors, be they church or society related. Sometimes that trust in the system can be tested greatly. Whoever has sat in on a church congregational meeting and seen the full use of Robert's Rules of Order can attest to that one. But we must never lose our faith in the democratic process to settle conflicts of conscience. The alternative is to fight, which causes more harm than good. Hence the next quote. Wars not to make one great. Now, the jumbled syntax of this quote should give Star Wars fans a clue as to who spoke this line. It was Yoda, Supreme Jedi Master, who was answering Luke Skywalker when Luke stated he was in search of a great warrior. The meaning I pulled from that line was this. Due to the damage and casualties generated, one could say that even if you win a war, you lose. Even the greatest warriors have not found the secret of how to win a battle without causing pain. That's a steep price to pay for getting your point across. Unfortunately, history has shown that at times it has been necessary to engage in war to undo a great wrong upon the world. There should, however, be no adulation of the act itself, as cooler heads should have been allowed to prevail. As UUs, we should strive to conduct all human relations with justice, equity, and compassion. My next quote also comes from Supreme Jedi Master Yoda. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Now, if you knew a loved one was going to die and you knew you could acquire the power to stop that, what price would you pay? Money? Your standing? Your soul? Anakin Skywalker had nightmares of losing his beloved Padme, his true love. His greed for power to stop her death became his downfall. Despite Yoda's best efforts to calm Anakin's mind and teach him not to be consumed by his desire, Anakin Skywalker was lured by false promises and turned to the dark side. While Yoda's words were intended to aid the young Jedi's spiritual progress, it seemed that Yoda was the only member of the Jedi Council to instruct him. The others that sat in that circle chose to be evasive and unclear as to Anakin's development. Perhaps, I thought, if they had followed the third principle of Unitarian Universalism, acceptance and encouragement for spiritual growth, Anakin may have had more of a defense against the dark side, and thus would have rewritten Star Wars history. The next quote, your focus determines your reality. That was Qui-Gon again, this time instructing Anakin, the boy, to keep his mind trained on his goals. It is as true here as it was a long time ago. One should never lose sight on what is most important, for then it becomes harder to achieve that goal than it is to hit a thermal exhaust port just 2 meters wide, even with a targeting computer. One major issue that Unitarian Universalism has taken up has been the issue of climate change. We have seen in recent events how certain leaders are trying to shift our focus on what that truly entails, who is responsible, even whether or not climate change exists. At stake is nothing short than the interdependent web of all existence. That is the reality. If we allow our focus to be clouded, or if we shift our focus elsewhere, we could be looking at a reality, at a future that none of us want. And my final quote, do or do not. There is no try. These words, spoken by Yoda to Luke Skywalker, are quite possibly the most quoted line in any Star Wars movie. The message is a simple one. No half measures. If you are not committed to an undertaking, it is best if you don't even start it. Saying you will try has an undertone of insecurity about it, almost as if you're preparing to fail at whatever it is you're going to do. A bit of context. During his training, Luke saw visions of his friends across the galaxy going into harm's way. Despite not being fully trained in the Jedi arts, he implored Yoda to let him postpone his training to help them. Yoda reluctantly agreed, but first instructed Luke that in order to leave his planet, Luke would have to get his spacecraft out of the marsh that it was submerged in, using only his mind. Well, despite his best effort, Luke was not able to complete his task. The ship was too big. Well, Yoda, all 3 feet of him, stepped up to the edge of the bog, closed his eyes, and proceeded to lift Luke's entire craft out of the bog, out through the brackish water, above their heads, and rested it on the dry ground. Luke walked over, examined his ship, went over to Yoda and said, "I can't believe it." To which Yoda simply replied, "That is why you fail." I suppose you could apply this to our religion. I mean, yes, we are all aware of the 7 principles. Some of us can even recite them. But is that really enough? Perhaps we have heard the United Way commercials where the speaker says, "I don't just wear the shirt, I live it." Do we? Do we truly live our principles, or do we just try? Perhaps it's time, as the new year approaches, to recommit to the principles, to try to make this life, this world, a better one, to be more compassionate, more accepting, more open-minded. Perhaps then, even in these dark, trying, confusing times, we can give rise to a new hope. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, aho, and blessed be.